Hey everyone, I'm Katie and you're watching the finale of For the Region on Suncrest On Demand. If you're familiar with Suncrest at all, you might be thinking, wait, I thought we'd been for the region since the pandemic started. And you'd be right. But we've been taking a hard focus on what it looks like to be in our community in ways that make a huge difference. We'll have more on that later. If you haven't seen the first 3 episodes, head over to our YouTube channel after this. If you don't have it already, go ahead and download the Suncrest app. When you use our app, you get insider access to things like past content, like our series, The Cross, upcoming events like community serving events and blood drives, stuff to help your kids engage with their faith journey, and much more. In the app and on our website, you can also partner with us financially. If you want to write a check or give cash, feel free to drop that off at our office this week. Your generosity makes a huge difference in Northwest Indiana and beyond through starting new churches. So, on behalf of all of us, thank you for using your finances to change lives. While you've got your phone out, checking out our app and giving, I know that some of you are watching your first Suncrest On Demand. I'm super excited that you're here. Would you send the word Suncrest to 94,000? When you do that, we'll send a digital gift card directly to your phone for some coffee. Here's how the rest of the video is gonna go. First, we're gonna experience some music. Music is one of my favorite parts of our time together. In fact, let us know a lyric that you found meaningful in the live chat or comments. 2, we're gonna experience communion. Each week we focus on the sacrificial love of Jesus. So now's the time to gather some food and drink to represent Jesus' body and blood. After the song is done, I'm gonna put a timer on the screen. Feel free to eat and drink when you're ready. And 3, after that, lead pastor Greg Lee is gonna wrap up our series For the Region. And 4, and finally, let us know something meaningful that you heard in the live chat or comments. Let's get going.
When our homes are hit by heartbreak, let your presence meet us there. When the pain seems overwhelming, we hold on to you. When the streets are torn by chaos, we will be your hands and feet. When the darkness brings division, may needs healing. So from my knees I lift this prayer to my Savior. For my life and for the world, you're the answer, Jesus.
I have a couple questions for you. I'm curious if there's anyone in the room who feels like sometimes you get more of the blame than you deserve. Anybody feel that way? Any situation you feel like, yeah, I kind of get the blame more than I deserve. Let me flip the question a little bit. How many of you, let's be honest, how many of you feel like, you know what? Sometimes I get more credit than I deserve. How many of you would say, yep, that's the story of life sometimes. I get more credit than I deserve. I think both are true probably for all of our lives in various circumstances, but I definitely live on the side of that equation where I get more credit than I deserve. And it's fascinating to me how it happens all the time because most of the reason it happens is because of you. So let me kind of describe this to you. It just happened again this week. On Tuesday, I got an invitation to serve on a board for one of the most amazing nonprofits in Northwest Indiana. It's an honor to be asked, and it's kind of amazing to be involved in the kinds of things that are going on in Lake County. But I started to think, why did they ask me? Why did they ask me? And I got to tell you, it absolutely is not disconnected from simply what happened here last weekend. You guys, we had the serving weekend of all serving weekends. There were more needs met. There were more people participating. It was amazing to see all of you out here and the energy around it. And then, of course, the love starts coming in. It came in all week long from all over our community. I'm going to show you just a few things. We got the love from Habitat for Humanity. It loves Suncrest. We got the love from the Down Syndrome Association Northwest Indiana. They love Suncrest. We got the love from the Dyer Police Department. We can just go through these first responders. Cedar Lake firefighters. We got the love from Schererville firefighters. We got the love from Crown Point police officers. And then this is a picture of Leslie. So Leslie is the woman who with her family is going to receive the house that was built in our parking lot that we built the walls for the house last weekend. And just over and over and over again, I feel like, man, people in Northwest Indiana love Suncrest Church, and I'm the one who gets the credit for it. But you're the ones doing all the work. And then I think, as it should be. Not as it should be that I get the credit and you do all the work, but as it should be that Northwest Indiana knows that you love them. Because for followers of Jesus, this is actually what Jesus said. They said, they will know you are Christians by your love. And I think Suncrest Church loves the region. So I think that's amazing. And it's, of course, what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. Today is the fourth week of this series. But let me go back to where we started this series. I believe that where we work, where we live, and where we play is significant, especially for followers of Jesus. That you don't live where you live by accident, that there is a purpose attached to it. You could even think, maybe God placed me there, but if you can't quite get your mind around that God placed you where you live, at least think that while I am here, God has a purpose for me. And that's true in the neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood, it's true in your workplace. It's true, with your bunco night or your golf league or whatever it is, that God's placed you there. And Jesus followers, I think we're embracing this, say, yeah, it matters where I live. I want to be part of bringing life and love to where I live. And so just very quickly, remember how we've been thinking about this. In week 1, I shared this, said, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I've carried you. You could say to the region to which I've carried you. You could say to the neighborhood. But wherever you are, wherever you've been planted, seek the peace and prosperity of that. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you prosper. That's how the community works, how God designed the world. And then on the second week, I said, if you're a follower of Jesus, we have a role in kind of transforming the spiritual landscape of this region. And I read this passage to you. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And if you were here, you wrote down a name and it's on that board out there. And here's what that does to all of us who are followers of Jesus. It resets something in our mind that's powerful, that God has placed us here to share his love and his grace and his message, the story of Jesus, with people who don't embrace it now, and it will change Northwest Indiana. And then last week, of course, we went out to serve, but I'm sure all of you still watch the sermon online, right? Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So don't miss this. Yeah, maybe you're familiar with the story. Jesus told a story. We call it the Good Samaritan. The idea is someone went out on a road. It was actually a known dangerous road. He got beat up, left to the side. One person walks by, doesn't help. Second person walks by, doesn't help. Third person walks by, does help. And at the end of the conversation, Jesus says, so which one do you think was the neighbor? And the answer is the one who had mercy. Now, don't miss this. This, of course, isn't just about going out and doing projects for one weekend collectively as a church. This is about us unleashing the church so that wherever you are, whenever you're going down the road or walking down the street, whenever you're in your workplace or you're in your golf league and you see a need, you see someone who's hurting, you'll be the one who has mercy. And I think this is crazy today because there's so many people around here today that I think if America, I'll just put it on America, if America was listening to Jesus tell this story, someone would stand in the back and raise their hand and say, but Jesus, shouldn't that guy have known better than to even go down that road? It was a dangerous road. Why, let him learn a lesson. We shouldn't help him. He had it coming. And followers of Jesus just completely oppose that kind of thinking. The question isn't, did they have it coming? The question isn't, could they have made a smarter decision? The question is, shouldn't they solve that themselves? The question is, who's on the side of the road? And will you and I be the ones who have mercy? Because Jesus told him, you go and do likewise. So here we are in week 4, the last week of this series. And I want to talk to you today just about the nature, kind of your relational world, where you live and where you work and where you play. And I want you to think for a moment about the neighborhood that you live in, the houses that are around you, the friends that you have where you live, and think, I'm a follower of Jesus, am I known in this neighborhood as a friend? Am I known in my neighborhood as like a go-to person if there's a need? Do people in my neighborhood respect me? I want us to think about that. And then not just where you live, but where you work. And I'm curious, I want you to think, am I known in my workplace as a friend? Like I'm a friend to people. Am I known in my workplace as a go-to person? As someone who brings harmony and help instead of division and difficulty? And if I'm in my golf league or my bunco group or whatever your social setting is, am I known in that group as a friend? Because I think followers of Jesus, when we narrow this down, one of the most powerful ways that you and I can be for the region and Suncrest can be for the region is that for each of us, right where we live, work, and play, we're a friend. And this is my observations. This is not just me. Making friends is a costly, lost art. What I'm saying to you is that in the social structure of the country we live in today, and I think the region that we live in today, making good friends, it's a lost art. People certainly aren't doing it like they used to. And I think the kind of quick answers, maybe you would think about this too, like, well, why is that? People like to quickly blame COVID, and COVID certainly has made it more difficult over the last year. People like to blame technologies. People are always looking at their phone, and certainly technology has a role in this, but it's deeper than that. And I just want you to think about yourself for a while. You can rewind about 20 years to the turn of the century, and this is when a couple of books were written that I think have creative titles, and they help us think about this in the right way. One of the books was by a Harvard University professor, and it was called Bowling Alone. And what he had studied was the contrast of how, in a previous couple of generations in America, there were social structures, especially for adults. People would be part of bowling leagues. People would be part of social clubs. People would be part of the Lions Club or the Kiwanis Club or the Optimist Club. People would be part of the VFW. They would gather in those settings, and adults would be friends with other adults. But what's happened over a couple of generations is people have tended to isolate themselves, so much so that the image is people are bowling alone. And then right after that, another book was written called Refrigerator Rights. And the idea behind Refrigerator Rights was kind of asking everyone the question, who are the people in your life who aren't part of your family who have the right to come into your house and open your refrigerator door? That maybe that's a good test of how many friends you have. Like that they could come into your house. I mean, you'd let them in. I'm not saying they come in the middle of the night or something. But you'd have them in your house and they don't have to ask you. They'd just go to the refrigerator and open it. And I want us to think about this tonight. A little bit, I want us to personalize it and think, well, am I missing friendships in my life? How many people have refrigerator rights in my life? And I also want you to think, how many people live around you, work around you, and are in a play group around you who are missing that in their life? And where you and I could be that person. Now, not only is this friendship a lost art, making friends, but it's a costly lost art. What's happened now 20 years later is, medical groups, Mayo Clinic and others are doing studies and finding that there is a massive cost to living a life without good friends. The cost is in our physical health. People who don't have friends, who live a life that's more isolated than others, they have a lower life expectancy. They have almost double the chance to experience diagnosed dementia in their life. Their sleep patterns are messed up, which messes up almost everything else about your health. It's not good. It comes at a cost physically if we don't have friends or if others don't have us as a friend. But it's not just physical, it's mental health. Depression, skyrocketing. Anxiety, skyrocketing. And I like to refer people to therapists, but do you know what I have a favorite therapist in the area. You know what he tells me? He tells me that 70% of the clients that he sees actually just need a friend. But not having this, like if you feel isolated, if you feel disconnected, if you feel like I'm going through something tough in life and I don't really have anyone I would talk to about that. Either I'm afraid to disclose it to them or I don't have someone I'd trust to hear what they would say back to me. If you're missing friendships like that, and I know people around you are missing friendships like that, it's massive to your spiritual health. But maybe the worst of all is there is a cost to our relational health. Because the corollary of people not having solid sets of friendships is that those same people put all the pressure that used to get distributed across friendships on their own family. And all of a sudden, we all expect our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, our parents to bear every burden that we had. And it's not fair. The nuclear family was never designed that way. But if you have that expectation of your spouse or of your son or of your mom, it will go wrong. That nuclear family was never designed to handle all the pressure that used to be spread out among relationships. I can't tell you what a great cost not having friends brings to to life, although for some of you, I don't have to tell you. You're sitting there thinking, Greg, that's the story of my life. So that's the observation. Here's the insight. The best way to make friends is actually to be a friend. One of the honors that I get is to do funerals from time to time. And it's always fascinating to me. Most funerals, it's a fairly small gathering of people. And then like 1 out of every 25 or 40 funerals, that's my general calculation. Like there's someone, and all of a sudden there's like 300 people at this funeral. And I always look at that person, I'm like, what's different? Like obviously that person was loved in a way the other 39 apparently weren't. And what I always find out, this is 100% true, is that yes, that person was loved in a way that most people aren't loved. And the reason for it was, get this, because they loved in a way that most people don't love. That's always the story. There's never any jerks who are in caskets and they get hundreds of people to show up. It doesn't happen. And what you find is some people, they're like, why doesn't anybody ever invite me over? And here's the secret. You should invite someone over. Why doesn't anyone ever include me in their group? Why doesn't anyone ever invite me? Why doesn't everyone? The answer is go be a friend. And for followers of Jesus, if you're sitting here thinking, Greg, I'm actually in good shape on this one. I got friends. I'm glad you do. It's the way God designed you to work. But my guess is there's people around you who could use you to be their friend also. So this is the application. The best way to be a friend is to practice hospitality. Now these two words, practice hospitality, are a command in Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12 happens to be my favorite chapter in all of the scriptures. And one of the reasons I love it is that it's kind of this staccato version of a bunch of really short, pithy commandments that help us see how to live out our faith in this world. And one of my theories about this particular passage is that practice hospitality is a 2-word sentence that is led by some other sentences that I'll show you in a moment and followed by some other sentences that I'll show you in a moment from Romans 12. And they all reinforce this umbrella idea to practice hospitality. And so I'm curious for all of you, if you were kind of gauge yourself and say, hey, how good am I at practicing hospitality? What kind of grade would you give yourself on that? And I think for those of us who are followers of Jesus, if you're not a follower of Jesus, you can take a pass on this, but for those of us who are followers of Jesus, the posture of hospitality is the constant posture of our lives toward everyone around us. Now, some of you are hearing this 2-word phrase, practice hospitality, and you're saying to me, Greg, that's not my personality, right? I'm an introvert, not an extrovert. Greg, maybe you're an extrovert. Maybe you and Jenny love to have people over at your house, but not me. I kind of just rather sit in my home and be by myself. And I want you to know, this isn't about personality. There are some of you who would love to have 25 people over. There are some of you who would love to have a table full, half a dozen people over. And there are others where your role is actually just to invite one person over. That scales the personality scale and embraces the spirituality idea that followers of Jesus practice hospitality. Now, I'm going to give you some images of this for where you live and where you work and you play. If you have something to write on, you might want to kind of draw some of these with me. I want you to really think about these images, okay? So I'm going to kind of think first where we live. And you can draw a tic-tac-toe board if you want to draw one of those, or just think about this with me. Because what this tic-tac-toe board represents to me is your neighborhood. Now, maybe you live on a big plot of land and nobody lives close to you. You can wait on me and you skip to the next one. But I want you to think about this, especially if you live in a neighborhood. If you live right here, my question is, who lives here? Who lives here? Who lives across the street and who lives behind you? And I'm going to ask you in just a little bit to think about who God has brought to mind for you as I describe some of these things. And I just want you to work through this a little bit with me. So let me give you my example. I won't name everybody, but on this side of me, Vic is my neighbor. On this side of me, Greg is my neighbor. On this kind of back here, Mike is my neighbor. And, you could kind of go through this and say, do I even know my neighbors' names? God placed me there. Do I even know their names? What else do I know about them? You can just get to know them a little bit. Do I know anything that they need? Any hurts that they have? Any ways I could help them? This is how relationships and friendships truly form. And so just stop and think, maybe God placed me right there. Sometimes I get credit for things I don't deserve. But in some of these neighborhood things, like I'm winning. I'm just going to tell you this. So I won't tell you which neighbor it is because it's kind of an interesting story. But when we moved into our neighborhood about 14 years ago, it was so fascinating to me because we would get invited to things. There's a bonfire in somebody's backyard. There's this, there's that. And mostly they invited me before they learned I was a pastor. Okay, fair enough. It's one of the things that I deal with, right? But I'm going to go, and then I'm going to try my best to get invited back even though I'm a pastor. That's basically my strategy, right? And mission accomplished most of the time. We'd sit around the fire, and people in Northwest Indiana, they love to drink beer. They just love to drink a lot of beer, right? And usually it's after people had drank a lot of beer around I won't point to which neighbor it is. They might be watching online right now, actually. People get real loose then when they drink beer. And then they find out I'm the pastor, and then, it's so fun for me. But it's like, one of the questions is, well, do you accept the invite to come over and hang out? Do you ever have the hangout at your place and invite someone else to come over? I just think as a follower of Jesus, you should really, really think about that. One night at one of these bonfires, one of my neighbors, who I really like, really love, honestly, he was standing next to me and he had had way too much to drink. And he was just kind of talking, and he came and he put his arm around me and he said, Greg is the best neighbor I have ever had. And then he fell on me. And I like to think he's more honest when he's drunk. Now, let me make Greg not the hero of a story. So, one of the neighbors who lives right around me on this grid, we lived next to him for a number of years. And his wife passed away, and I didn't even know it for a month. That's how not a good neighbor I am to one of the other people on this grid. One of these neighbors, over the last few months, has gone through COVID, ended up in the hospital twice. And I went over to talk to him afterwards, try to encourage him and support him. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, if you need anything, just let me know. We're here for you. And he's like, well, how would I get a hold of you? And I realized I had never given him my number. And this is how. So I'm curious about your neighborhood. That's really what I'm curious about. Friendships. And maybe it's not the people who live in the 8 spots closest to you. Maybe you should think about it like this. Who's new to the neighborhood? They don't have to live right next door. Whoever's new, practice hospitality. Who's in need in your neighborhood? You heard about a need. Someone's going through something tough. They need some help with childcare. They had some accident at their house, whatever. Who's in need? Practice hospitality to whoever's in need. Who is God nudging you? Even as I'm describing this, think, I'd actually like to hang out with them. Why haven't I invited them over? Why haven't I practiced hospitality? Be a neighbor. So this is where we live. Let me think a little differently. Where you work, okay? So I'm using a different shape for where you work because many workplaces are designed in a hierarchy, right? Someone's at the top of the food chain, a boss, an owner, manager, general manager, and other people, maybe somewhere else. And you can just put yourself wherever you end up in this. And I think the layers to this will matter in just a little bit. But wherever God has placed you where you work, there's people who are your peers. There's people a step above you or maybe a step below you. I'm just wondering, why has God placed you there? And my guess is it's for a friendship that goes beyond the workplace, that says, hey, why don't us and our spouses go out for dinner Friday night? And you build a friendship. Similar to your neighborhood, you could say, well, who's new to work? If you decided that every time someone new comes into your workplace, you're going to go out of your way to welcome them, greet them, help them feel comfortable, answer their questions, you become one of the people in your office that people love. You're a go-to person. You can say, well, who's in need? Who's going through something tough right now? I'm going to be there for that person who's going through something tough. Who is God nudging me? Who's he bringing to mind right now that like, yeah, I'd actually like to be friends with them. Take the step. And then this is a little different picture for play, right? But wherever you play, like a lot of you have, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, 6 connections. I can use bunco, I can use golf, I can use your kids' soccer team, I can use whatever, the PTA. These are just the places we live our lives out there. And God has placed people right around you. And one of the things actually that's happened is he's placed friends of theirs potentially in your proximity. And I just want to call on us as we're thinking about being for the region to think, man, maybe God has placed me there to be a friend, to practice hospitality, to build out the social structure of this setting. And again, if somebody's new or someone's in need or you're getting a nudge, I want you to take that as the Holy Spirit. In the end, I think followers of Jesus ought to be the best friends available in any of these settings. So how does that really work? Well, let me give you the staccato verses out of Romans chapter 12. First thing you do, whoever you're kind of bringing to mind right now, is you focus on them, of course, right? I know, most people's favorite subject to talk about is themselves, which could make you tempted to talk about yourself. But the discipline is to honor one another above yourself, and instead of talking, just be curious. Just ask questions. Just be normal. Just learn about their life. Show that you care. Honor one another above yourselves. Second, you got to celebrate their highs. There's a perfect opportunity. If you ever learn someone in your neighborhood or someone in your workplace or someone in your places you play, they got an award, they accomplished something, they got recognized for something, I'm asking you, the way to practice hospitality is to pile on that celebration, to rally other people to celebrate too, because some of you have been here. One of the most lonely feelings you can have in life is to accomplish something, to be recognized, to be awarded with a plaque or something, and then think, I don't actually have anybody to celebrate this with. Whoever I would tell, they would feel like I was bragging. I don't have a friend that's good enough where I can just say, you know what, I killed it. And they'd return with celebration instead of mockery. And so anytime, maybe you know this in those circles right now, anytime someone's winning, celebrate it with them. That's what the scriptures say, rejoice with those who rejoice. That's the most practical way to practice hospitality. Then, of course, be present in their lows. The scriptures also say, mourn with those who mourn. And I think these are actually the true tests of friendship. What do you do when someone you know, they've been an acquaintance, maybe on the edge of friendship, is going through something tough? And the answer for most people is, since I don't know what to say, I do nothing. And I think, I pray the followers of Jesus don't do that. Someone in your neighborhood has experienced a loss when they're going through something tough. When someone at your workplace has experienced a loss when they're going through something tough. Let me give you the pastoral advice I got from a pastor I respect this week. He said, here's what you do. You show up and then shut up. You don't have magic words and you don't have to pretend that you do. You just don't want to let them go through it alone. And so, wouldn't it be wild if God placed you, a follower of Jesus, in a neighborhood and he also has neighbors right next to you who are going through great challenges, but you, the follower of Jesus, are doing nothing? We can't do that. So we mourn with those who mourn. What else do we do? We bridge the gaps. The passage says, live in harmony with one another. Do any of your neighborhoods have Facebook pages? Oh my goodness. What a ugly place to be. You know what the discussion is? We got two discussions that go on in my neighborhood Facebook page. Some of you know the neighborhood I'm living in, but never mind. So one is whether we should have an HOA or not. And you can probably imagine nobody has strong opinions about that. They're lined up. I think for war, one side and the other. Yes, we should. No, we shouldn't. Right? I won't tell you about the other one. This one. Here's the thing. I think if you're a follower of Jesus in your neighborhood and you have neighbors who are lined up against each other, this is your job. Live in harmony with one another. Now, here's the thing. I have an opinion about the HOA. But I think as a follower of Jesus, it's actually my job to take this guy who's got this strong opinion and this guy who's got this strong opinion and say, hey, listen, we can disagree about things and obviously we're going to have to navigate where it goes, but we don't have to yell at each other. We don't have to fight each other. We don't have, look, this guy's actually a good guy and you're a good guy too. Let's hang out together. And some of you are sitting there thinking, yeah, Greg, but if I do that, I never get to express my opinion about the HOA. And I'm saying, yeah, that's how it works, isn't it? For the follower of Jesus. That you become the person who lives in harmony. Are there spats in your workplace? Are there places where there's not harmony in your workplace? Guess what the follower of Jesus gets to do? To be a good friend. You become the person who practices hospitality. You invited a couple people who don't see things the same way to lunch and have lunch together. Last thing. Look out for the left out. Any follower of Jesus has to do this. What does Romans 12 say? It says, be willing to associate with people of low position. And one of the most powerful ways to be a healthy friend for someone where you live, where you work, and where you play is to be willing to go where others don't go. To the one who is isolated, to the one who is left out, to the one who is looked down on. If you're the boss, it's a really powerful thing to drop down 2 levels and be a friend. To not be afraid, but be, the phrase before this is actually, do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of a low position. Just invite them into your home. Invite them into your life. Invite them into your backyard. So Suncrest, this is my vision for us. That yes, if Suncrest Church disappeared, if our programs and our For the Region initiatives and all that, our worship services disappeared, I think the region would miss us. But what I really want to think is, what if you disappeared from the place you live and you work and you play? What if Suncrest Church disappeared because you disappeared? Would there be a lot less hospitality going on? Would neighborhoods be worse off and workplaces be worse off because you had to exit? And so I have something very particular, and we're going to help you with this. I want to ask you, sometime in the very near future, and if you need to let COVID pass a little further before you're comfortable with this, totally get it, no problem. You can still jump in tonight. I want to ask you to take a box that we have with us, we've prepared today, and for you to practice hospitality where you live, where you work, or where you play. I want Jamie to describe this to you real quick.
We've put all the items you'd need to plan a simple dinner or throw an outdoor party, if you're up for it, in a box. So, if you're up for the challenge to invite to dinner someone new from where you live, work, or play, we've got you covered. We've provided a sample menu, though you could make it whatever you want. We've provided a voucher for Welch's Stop and Shop here in St. John. It won't pay for everything you buy, but it'll help some. And no, don't take a box just to buy some steaks for your family. If you misuse the money like that, I hope you get the most gristly steak ever. We've provided some other simple resources like a small talk starter question, some sample recipes, and some invitations. Not to mention the plates, silverware, and napkins that really should make this simple. If you're up for the challenge, then just determine how many people you'd invite. We have 3 different sizes of boxes based upon the number of people. For most people, 1 other family. It's the right way to think about it. For some of you, a few families may come to mind, and a few of you would be up for throwing an outdoor block party because you're party kind of people. That's up to you. So take your right-sized box. Pray about who God would have you ask. Pick a date, send some invites, and see how God can lead you to be for the region He loves by getting to know better some of the people He loves where you live, work, and play.
How are you going to be #4theregion this week? Let us know in the comments section. Before you turn off this video, hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel. And until then, go and be the church.